Hello BookTube, this is my June book haul. There are quite a few books to get to, 5 books of history and 12 volumes of manga. So I'm going to start with the history books first. If you're not interested in the manga haul, you can go ahead and click off or stop watching. At that point, I'll maybe have a little pause once I finish the history books. So let's get started. Although I do plan on talking about what my goals are for book hauls for the rest of the year at the end of the video. So anyway, let's get started. So first up is one of 2 pre-orders I've had this month that came in like in the 1st of June. So the first one is a paperback release, and that is the Deviance War by Eric Cervini. This is the story of Eric Kamini, who was a gay astronomer working for the federal government, who, once his sexuality was discovered, was fired. He subsequently sued for wrongful termination and lost the case and devoted the rest of his life to activism. I've heard a lot of great things about this book, and I'm looking forward to getting to it. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Next up is a new release, How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith. This is a history of the after effect of slavery and its after effects, and how the after effects of slavery affect us even today. And I saw this hauled just recently on Steve Donahue's channel, and he praised it. He had, I think, one issue with it, but for the most part, he really loved it, and that got me interested. And so I went ahead and pre-ordered it, and I'm looking forward to getting to it. Going ahead and loading my pyramid. The next book is Used from a Libris. This comes from a Midtown Scholar in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and it is 1688, The First Modern Revolution by Steve Pincus. This is a history of the Glorious Revolution, the parliamentary revolt against James II, who converted to Catholicism, and with the birth of his son, would have seen the House of Stuart return to the Catholic faith, and therefore leaving much problems for England and Scotland, as both countries were firmly ruled by Protestants. So in order to forestall this eventuality, Parliament asked James's eldest daughter, Mary, to come in with her husband William to overthrow her father and become the new king and queen of, queen and king of England and Scotland. And I'm looking for, I've been quite interested in the Glorious Revolution for some time, so I'm looking forward to reading a dedicated history of that period. Next up is a big work of history that I got from Book Depository. I want to say there was a sale on, or I just decided to pick it up, and that is Iron Kingdom, The Rise and Downfall of Prussia, 1600 to 1947, by Christopher Clark. This is a big history of Prussia, a German principality that eventually became a kingdom and was the nucleus of the German Empire when Germany unified in the late 19th century, and subsequently was the driving force through to the Second World War. Before, in the aftermath of the Second World War, Prussia was done away with as an entity. or as a territorial entity. And the last book of history I have this month is one that came in yesterday, which had a bit of an interesting route getting to me. So I ordered, so I'll talk a bit about this in weekly reads too, but my youngest nephew's birthday's coming up. And I went ahead and ordered his birthday present because it's like this Sunday and I really needed to get it in. So this Monday was Prime Day and I had like a $10 credit. So I'm like, I'll get this for him and go ahead and get me a book because I'm in the need to buy a book. So I went ahead and bought the book, Ravenna by Judith Herren. And so this order, as well as another order from my mom, got bundled together and shipped via UPS, which was supposed to come on Wednesday, but UPS was running incredibly late. My brother got his shipment in at 10:30 something Wednesday night, and we were going to get it about that time too, but the driver couldn't, I guess, find a safe spot to deliver, or was new, so he didn't know where to drop off the package. So we missed the delivery, and it was redelivered yesterday. And it is a new driver, so I think he'll probably start to deliver in a way different than what the usual driver or ex-driver used to do. But anyway, so this is a history of, so Ravenna is a history of the city in Italy that served as capital of the Roman Empire and the Byzantine Empire and that sort of thing. So looking forward to it. And I've been wanting Ravenna for a while. It's been in my cart. So on Amazon, you basically can like save items from your cart into like a kind of a cart annex, and it's been in there for a while. But anyway, so those were the 5 history books. So if you're not necessarily interested in the manga, have a great afternoon, and I'll see you for weekly reads. If you are interested in staying for the manga and my plans for the next 6 months of 2021, let's get going. So I have a lot of manga. I went insane this month. I don't quite know why, but it's just I've been thinking about getting into manga again over the past few months, and I wasn't entirely sure, but this month I kind of jumped the gun, and I jumped the gun. So let's get started. So first up is Fullmetal Alchemist Volume 1 by Hiromu Arakawa. As I mentioned in my Has Steve Read It video, Fullmetal Alchemist is the story of the Ulrich brothers, Edward and Alphonse. They are 2 alchemists who are searching for the Philosopher's Stones in order to restore their bodies. When the brothers were younger, they attempted to resurrect their mother using human transmutation. This act is forbidden, not only legally, but also alchemically. To enact human transmutation results in not only the transmutation failing, but the alchemist suffering grievous bodily harm. In Edward's case, he lost his leg. In Alphonse's case, he lost his entire body. To save Alphonse, Edward sacrifices his arm to inscribe Alphonse's soul onto a suit of armor. So, this is Alphonse right here. That's Edward. So in order to try to restore themselves, Edward joins the military and becomes a state alchemist. and together they go in pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone, which will be able to restore their bodies without cost. As they adventure, they discover the truth of the Philosopher's Stones and come across a ancient conspiracy that threatens their homeland of Amestris, and is very interested in the brothers, as well as a number of other alchemists that appear throughout the story. I read the entire series around the time that it ended in the 2011, because I think it's the 10th anniversary of its ending coming up. And I really enjoyed it. I loved the series. I didn't collect as many volumes as I would have liked. I think I had one of the later ones. But I'm very interested in rereading it and certainly collecting the entire series if I'm able to. Next up is, well, the next two are part of the big three. So in shonen manga, there are a number of magazines. So unlike American comic books that are released in individual floppy magazines, manga are released in digest style magazines. And one of the most famous is Weekly Shonen Jump, whose mangas are released in English translation through Viz. And for the better part of the 21st century, three manga dominated Weekly Shonen Jump. One of them, and the one that's still ongoing, is One Piece by Eiichiro Oda, and the other two are the two that I'm about to haul. The first is Naruto by Masashi Kishimoto. Naruto is the story of Naruto Uzumaki, who is a student ninja who later becomes a trainee ninja, who is the village pariah. And as the story progresses, Naruto, who wishes to be Hokage, the leader of the village, the strongest ninja, begins to change the reason why he wants to be Hokage. He goes from wanting to be acknowledged to protecting his friends and family and the village as a whole, despite the fact that for most of his life they've treated him like shit. And across the series, he fights a number of rivals who are dark reflections of himself, areas where he could have fallen had things not gone certain ways. And I really enjoyed the series, although I'm a bigger fan of the second half of Naruto. Well, it's not technically half, it's the later part of Naruto. So Naruto is divided into two parts. The first part is when Naruto is a trainee ninja. And then the second part is after a time skip where he hasn't really advanced in rank, but he's advanced in power, in understanding and characterization. And this part sees Naruto become a much more epic story, where Naruto has to fight to defend not only Konoha, his home village, but also the entire world from various threats that seek to destroy it or eat it. So anyway, quite enjoyed the second part, which I kind of collected most of. I think I had the entire Psy arc, or the Psy introduction, and then going on for a while. So the third member of the big three is Bleach by Tite Kubo. Bleach is the story of Ichigo Kurosaki, a Japanese high school student who lives in Karakura. I think that's the town in Tokyo. He has the ability to see and interact with ghosts. And one day he meets a young Shinigami called Rukia who's hunting a hollow, a corrupted ghost. This hollow manages to get the better of her, and Ichigo takes on Rukia's power to become a sort of a human Shinigami, and his adventures flow from there. I quite enjoy the series. It does have a major drop off towards the end, which a lot of long running series do tend to have. But the first few volumes that I've read, I've really enjoyed, and the later Hueco Mundo arc, quite enjoying a lot of those fights. So definitely looking forward to rereading Bleach. Next up are two manga that I've talked about previously, quite a bit last year and into this year, because I've discovered them on Kindle Unlimited. Unfortunately, they were very limited on Kindle Unlimited, so I decided I really want to have these in my collection. So first up is Fairy Tail by Hiro Mashima, my favorite manga of all time. This is the story of Natsu Dragneel, his Exceed companion Happy, and Lucy Heartfilia. They are members of the Fairy Tail Guild. This first volume introduces Lucy to Natsu, but to the Fairy Tail Guild, which he subsequently joins and begins their adventures. I love this manga. It's just wonderful. And I'm looking forward to rereading the entire series and actually having the entire series in my collection, which I've never had. I had quite a few volumes, the early volumes, but kind of regret not continuing on with collecting Fairy Tail. So quite happy to have Fairy Tail back. Next up is The Seven Deadly Sins by Nakaba Suzuki. I talked a bit about this last year when I read it on Kindle Unlimited. It's the story of a princess, Elizabeth, who is seeking to find the Seven Deadly Sins, an elite group of warriors to take back her kingdom from the usurping Holy Knights. I really, when I first read Seven Deadly Sins, I didn't quite like it, but having read it on Kindle Unlimited, I really started to enjoy it, and I read like all of the volumes that were available on Kindle Unlimited, and decided I really want to have the entire series. So quite happy to have it, and am looking forward to rereading it. Next up is a manga that I haven't read yet, but I have become obsessed with, and really the manga that has kickstarted my desire to perhaps recollect manga, and that is Magi by Shinobu Ohtaka. This is the story of Aladdin, who's a young wizard who adventures, and he meets a thief called Alibaba, and together they go on adventures in a land that is very reminiscent of a mythical Middle East, presented by or through like the 1001 Nights. So there's Aladdin and Alibaba, also Sinbad and Jafar are characters. So anyway, I'm looking forward to getting to this, and I will report back. So the next few volumes of manga are new releases. or like ongoing series. The first one is the follow-up series, or the sort of the next series from Shinobu Ohtaka, Orient. So Orient is basically alternate history in which during the Sengoku period, Japan was conquered by demons. And the main character, Masashi and Kojiro seek to join a band of samurai, or magical warriors, who seek to overthrow the demons that have conquered Japan. Looking forward to getting to it. I've dipped into it and quite enjoy it. The next one is Hiro Mashima's follow-up to Fairy Tail, although there's also a direct sequel to Fairy Tail, Fairy Tail 100 Years Quest, which I'm kind of thinking on collecting, but maybe after I've gotten all of Fairy Tail itself. So is Eden Zero. So Eden Zero is a space opera that involves a young man named Shiki who searches for friends and meets a young lady, Rebecca, who is very reminiscent of Lucy Hartfilia and her cat Happy. And together they go on adventures. And I'll report back a bit more about the plot after I've read it. So one thing about Hiro Mashima's work is he will carry over characters and character designs. So in his first work, Rave Master, he created the character Pluie. And also, I think a character called Seagrain, although he might have had a different name. But Pluie later appears in Fairy Tail as a celestial spirit of Lucy's. And Seagrain's character design later becomes the character of Jalal Fernandez. In Eden Zero, Rebecca is very similar to Lucy. Obviously, the Happies come on board. There's a character that's very similar to Ursa Scarlet towards the end of this volume, and Pluie makes an appearance. So it's kind of an interesting sort of continuation in Mashima's work. So the next one is one that I discovered through a sale on Book Depository. That Book Depository will sometimes have sales on specific books. And usually I'm not terribly impressed with those books, but I decided to actually look a bit more through what they had on sale, and there were quite a few manga that I was interested in, and one of them that just really stood out to me, and that is Toilet Bound Hanako-kun by Aidalro. So Toilet Bound Hanako-kun is the story of a young girl whose school is incredibly haunted. Perhaps the most haunted place in all of Japan in this setting. And one of the most famous of the hauntings is a ghost Hanako who is bound to a toilet. So if you go to this toilet, and you can get Hanako to grant a wish. And from there, Hanako and this young girl have adventures. And I've dipped into the manga, this volume, and quite like what I've seen so far, so I'm looking forward to having a go at it. Next up is one that I got kind of recently, and it's a bit funny. It's I didn't quite cover it. Dick Fight Ireland. It's a mix of yaoi and bara, two genres of manga that are about gay characters. Yaoi is kind of a side genre of josei, which is targeted at young women, and bar, which is more targeted at gay men. And this is kind of a mix of the two. And it's by Reibun Ike. And it's basically about this island where every 4 years chosen champions from various clans gather to fight. And their fighting revolves around having bizarre costumes and winning by forcing their opponent to climax. And it's surprisingly become incredibly popular. In fact, Viz, who publishes it, actually had to do a second printing because the manga proved so popular. So the next two, or the last two, are is from a series that I've read previously, though I don't think I haven't completed. And there's a bit of a story behind it. So I originally ordered 3, the first volume and 2 other volumes which the seller had. Unfortunately, only 2 came, and I'm kind of working on correcting that, and so hopefully that'll work out. Although I didn't pay too much money, so anyway. But the funny thing about this, and also with 1688, is the seller uses the postal service, and the thing is it'll read like accepted or like shipment received, package acceptance pending, and it'll be like that for days, and then it will eventually pop up in Dallas. No for scanning in between those two, and then it kind of has a weird journey to McGregor. This particular package ended up going to Waco, going back to Dallas, and then back to Waco before Brown getting to me. But anyway, so the 2 volumes I did get of Tsubasa Reservoir Chronicle by Clamp is volume 6 and volume 15. Hopefully I can get volume 1 in pretty quickly. And so Tsubasa is about, or it's really a massive multiversal mashup of Clamp's earlier works. So it's the story of Sayurin and Sakura, who are the protagonists of Cardcaptor Sakura, who in this iteration live in a desert kingdom. Sakura is grievously injured and her memories are spread across reality, dimensions, realms, and Sayurin and a group of companions must travel through various dimensions to gather Sakura's memories, which are in the form of feathers. And the story progresses until a whole lot of wacky stuff happens at the end. I've never fully read the story. I think I've gotten a good chunk of the way through because I'm pretty sure I've gotten to around volume 15. But anyway, I'm looking forward to having another go at that series too. So that concludes what I've picked up this month. So my plans for July through December. So depending upon how my reading of the manga I picked up goes, I will likely pick up more. Not entirely sure how much or, when, we'll see. And yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a madness during the early parts of this month, which is why I picked up so many. Whether or not I kind of go crazy for manga the rest of the year, I don't know. We shall see. But I'm also planning on picking up some more history, namely of the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa. I kind of want to focus on those regions. There's a few biographies of British royals that are coming out that I want. Elizabeth II, George III, that are coming out in the fall. I'm also wanting to pick up more science books, which is something that I've been meaning to do and haven't. Also, I want to focus a bit on science fiction, particularly science fiction anthologies. I'm one of the co-hosts of New Worlds November, which is a massive kind of science fiction readathon coming up in November, and the focus is on science fiction short stories. And while I do have quite a few anthologies, I want to pick up some more so I have a wider selection. Also, the 3 books that I'm thinking of reading are a bit large, and so I don't know how that's going to work with nonfiction November, because I do want to focus quite heavily on nonfiction, namely science books, which is a genre of nonfiction that I really need to focus a bit more on. And whatever else strikes my fancy over the course of the month, and I'll talk about that when I get to it. So anyway, let's try some pyramids. So, to reiterate, the history: 1688, Ravenna. How the word is passed: Deviance War, Iron Kingdom. Tsubasa, 6 and 15. Dick Fight Island 1. Tolobon Hanako-kun 1. Eden 0 1. Orient 1. Magi 1. 7 Deadly Sins 1. Fairy Tail 1. Bleach 1. Naruto 1. And Fullmetal Alchemist 1. And let's see if I can get all of them together. So, anyway, BookTube, I will see you later with weekly reads. And until then, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.